cup of coffee.
You're kidding.
I'm serious, honey. Your coffee's undrinkable.
Pretty harsh.
Well, so's your coffee.
You move through my veins, you move through every part of me. Take you to places no one knows to find relief. Cut through my side. No more time enough to fight. Drained out of every part of me. When I think if you would change your mind and let
Well, it's Tuesday. We're almost to Wednesday, and then Wednesday means we're almost done with the week. But they say there's going to be some more of that evil stuff from above, that snow that we keep getting. Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to another episode, I guess. We're just kind of hanging out on a Tuesday. I don't know why we're doing this on Tuesday, but why not? Today we're going to talk about obscure battles, and I'm really kind of interested to see where this goes in terms of how many episodes and all we'll be doing in this regard and in this fashion. I really want to get into talking about some of the lesser known battles, some of the ones that may have been, very well preserved, some of the ones that may not be preserved at all. We just have them in memory, whatever it might be. Diving into them a little bit more and giving them some attention that they rarely ever get. That would be kind of cool, wouldn't it? But joining me today too, it's going to be John Ruse. We got John in here. John, say hello, my friend.
Hello.
There we go.
What's going on?
Oh, same old, man. Just, another work week and another week of getting books that I don't know what to do with at this point because the pile of reading just keeps going and going and going and going. It's going to get so tall, I think it's just going to get up to my ceiling. And I got a rather tall ceiling, mind you. So it'll be interesting.
I don't make piles. I can't make piles. I just have
I don't really have any other opportunity to do anything else right now. Or I would really love to build shelves on the walls and just kind of get them, floating around there somewhere. That would ultimately be really cool. So hopefully maybe that can happen. We'll see.
Yeah, shelves will help because then, it kind of forces you. But trust me, they still stare at you. They're still there. The books are still, egging you on to grab them, and you just got to resist it.
Yep. I've learned to live with that. Might as well.
Oh, good stuff. I haven't been on I think I popped in with you and Tattooed Historian, but it's been a little while.
Yeah, no, it absolutely has. I still actually have my Sundays picture up. You can see the 3 books that I was working on. I mean, they're still my main focus right now. Those 3 right there. Worst Place in Hell, which I'm almost done with, and it's really, really good so far. It's still living up to its expectations, so no change in that. It's still great, still fantastic. Recommend it. It's out today, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, officially out today. So if you guys have a chance to stop by the bookstore on your 9 to 5 commute home, I know it's 5:30, so the ones that might be able to have the opportunity to listen to your car, turn to your bookstore and go grab it. It's awesome. Definitely worth the read. If we're supposed to get snow this week too, probably a good idea to read that. Next in line, yeah, they said we're supposed to get more. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I'm looking at Thursday right now. Oh shoot.
Those were the first words I opened this show with today. Was we're getting snow again. I'm about sick of it, man. I really am. But yeah, the second one there, Heather Cox Richardson's "How the South Won the Civil War," which was really, really highly recommended to me by my friend Joe LaFleur. And he was ranting and raving about it so much, I just decided, you know what? Now I'm going to go ahead and get it so I can conversate with him about it and maybe even have him on here to talk about the book with me. And maybe, yeah, it'd be cool to have his interpretation of what he thought about it. I would like to hear. Third is one that I'm very, very, very excited to read, and that's America's Buried History, Landmines in the Civil War. Again, one of those obscure topics that we don't necessarily always tend to zero in on and focus on. So having the opportunity to, again, read something like that is going to be really, really, really an experience, if anything. Ryro, welcome to the chat, bud. Good to see you. All right, so today's topic, we are talking about obscure battles of the Civil War. And, you know, maybe some of these aren't as obscure as we are trying to make them out to be. I think it's just a cool title, and I really think at the same time, if you're just generally studying the war, you're not someone who has avidly studied, you may have not heard of these battles because they're either battles that are following large engagements that are obviously overshadowing these battles, or engagements, if you will, and they could be ones that are just so minuscule in comparison to numbers that they're just completely glossed over as skirmishes.
Absolutely. Yeah, obscure battles are important. Sometimes the obscure battles tell more of the story than the major battles, because the two armies come together, they fight this huge battle, but it's these little tiny engagements that kind of set the stage for what happens or in the coming battle, or it sets the stage for how these armies are going to react going forward. Because after the big battle, they usually just move apart, and then it's like these little things that go on along the way that push the story along. These guys just don't go from major battle to major battle. So the obscure battles are extremely important in understanding the war. And actually, I'll add real quick that usually that's where a lot of names that you hear of, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, but like you may hear of a name at a battle like Gettysburg or Chancellorsville or Vicksburg or something, but where they made their bones is usually at one of these smaller battles. That's how they rose through the ranks. Things like that. So, yep.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I mean, there's a plethora of battles that we could just, begin to name off. One I just got a book on today is about the Battle of Ball's Bluff in 1861, where the most angry you'll ever hear me get is when I talk about Edward Baker, who was a senator who got shot by those rebels at Ball's Bluff, and I do not appreciate that. And I'm really pissed off about that. It's 150 years, 60 now. Freak, yeah, we're on the 160th of Ball's Bluff this year.
Yep. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, I'm definitely going to make a trip out there.
Yeah, we're pushing towards the 175th, man. It seems like just yesterday was the 150th anniversary of everything.
Remind me again when I'm 50. But these battles, like just like that, I get all excited because I know now we're on a 160th, and I'm gonna go, I guess, to go see Ball's Bluff in October 21st, 2021. That the battle is the 21st or the 22nd. That'll be a fun date to go up there. 10/21/21.
Maybe do a little talk from there.
I do plan. So I do have a the Wi-Fi device that I have from my Verizon account is actually one that we can use to stream. So we got one piece already knocked out.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. Nice.
Next thing is
I wouldn't know
cameras.
how to use it.
I already do. I'm good. It literally just charges and sits. It doesn't do anything but connects. It's just a little router, that portable router that pings off of like Verizon cell phone service, so you can have Wi-Fi running through your stream. That way the stream would be a little more fluid and, you know, just putting off a better bit of production for people watching at home while we're on the field with spotty service. Sometimes the phone might bug in and out. It tries to keep it a little more stable than normal. But Balls Bluff, one of the smallest national cemeteries. That is what I hear. I hear it's a very small national cemetery, and I mean, I hear the battlefield itself isn't necessarily the largest battlefield, but what is saved and what is around the national cemetery is pretty pristine, and that it would be very much worth visiting. And it's been on my list. I don't know what has prevented me really from just like getting the book, start really looking into it more and studying it, because I pass Baker's statue in the Capitol building almost daily, and I just get so ticked off at that, man.
Man, are you still ticked off at Booth for shooting Lincoln?
Who in the right mind wouldn't be? But a senator is in a brigade. Like, it's just...
I never knew this about you, so I'm finding this kind of humorous, but, you know, I'm not trying to laugh at your anger, but...
It's as passionate as I used to get about hating Sickles, and then I started reading the book on Sickles, and then I read the Peach Orchard book. I was just like, all right, now I got an admiration for Sickles that I never thought in my life I would ever have.
Sickles is the man.
I think so. I think so.
Bust into that Excelsior monument over there.
No, please don't start me on that. Didn't he steal his own monument, essentially? Like,
yeah, he embezzled it or something like that. I don't know.
What the hell?
You gotta love the guy. He is a character.
You gotta love embezzlement? I mean, what is wrong with us?
You gotta love Sickles. I don't know about embezzlement, but either way, he definitely you can say Sickles may be the reason that Gettysburg is there, although I think Gettysburg would have became a battlefield either which way. A preserved battlefield, I should say.
I mean, yeah, so long as it was following in the footsteps of Chickamauga and Chattanooga.
Yeah. Yep. I think once that was done. For a lot of people that don't know, Gettysburg was not the first. Most people think Gettysburg's the first when I talk to them.
It's the third, isn't it?
They usually think it's the biggest, and it's not actually really. I don't even think it's in the top 5 of military parks.
First two are Antietam and Chickamauga. Those are the two first. If I'm not mistaken. I think it's Antietam's the second one.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know Chickamauga's first.
Yeah,
Antietam,
absolutely.
Antietam, I think, was actually 5. I know the first 5. I don't know. The only one I know offhand is Chickamauga was first.
And Kojak says that there are 2 miles worth of walking at the Balls Bluff battlefield on the banks of the Potomac River, dude. Yeah, I'm definitely. 2 miles isn't bad. I normally cover that when I'm at like Chancellorsville or Wilderness. Especially counting for what me and John have wandered off at Chancellorsville before when we went down there. That was cool as hell. Like we tend to wander off, and that's normal.
Oh yeah, I mean the Chancellorsville History Trail alone from the visitor center, that big loop trail, I think is over 3 miles by itself. So
yeah,
2 miles is nothing. And if you've ever done North Anna, that's a hefty hike, and that's well over 2 miles.
I found a picture or a sketch of Balls Bluff, and I think it's a Wode sketch, and I would like to use it, so I'm going to add it. John told me to visit. Well, I appreciate you joining in, man. We do something very similar to John. We just get on. We have discussions weekly, and you're going to hear my beagle hound dog in the background named Shelby, because she's adorable and just likes to yell and let her know that she's here. But we do discussions multiple times a week, and I used to follow a schedule of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but at this point I kind of just, hey, there's a topic in my head. Anybody want to talk? Normally I get takers, and we come on here and we just pretty much chat away for a little bit and have a loose-based topic, just kind of get onto something, and don't really want to focus too much on delivering a huge lecture or anything of that nature. We just want to chat and discuss history instead.
A lot of it is just our thoughts on topics and things like that, and just kind of raising awareness and interest in stuff like, Michael Hardy with a lot of the North Carolina stuff that people may not know. Major Cushman definitely was a huge one for women reenactment and living history and stuff like that. So it's a lot more awareness than it is about analytical stuff. What we do here. We will analyze battles and argue about stuff eventually.
Of course, that I would like to do that more so when we're on the field, though. That would be more something I think that would be worthwhile to see when we can actually be pointing at the ground, showing you the ground, the terrain, the features, the things that make it so important. That's what really I think would make the stream so unique and so maybe helpful. Because I'm not out here to get crazy views or all this stuff, man. I want to help, just kind of do a story and do it a different way. Just try to, get involved and be able to teach these things and have an outlet for that and have a community for people to come and learn and hang out and provide their input as well, their research. I would love to have that, and we really enjoy that. And yeah, the National Health Museum, that's on my site. The National Museum of Civil War Medicine is 100% on my list of things that I need to go see.
You never been there in Frederick?
Not yet.
It's a cool museum.
I've heard so many good things about it, so I definitely want to get up there and check it out.
Yeah, for those of you that have never been there, go there with not eating beforehand, because you're going to see images and stuff that's going to, be stomach turning. I mean, it was a war. There was nothing, pretty about it. And you're going to see photographs of some very graphic things, but you also see a lot of the advancements in prosthetics and even, recreating faces. Like, they saw somebody that lost the bottom part of their mouth, and then they have a bottom part of their mouth in the next photo. It's a really amazing place to see, and you get a chance to go to Frederick, Maryland, do it. There's also the Battle of Monocacy, which actually, even though it's a national park, the Battle of Monocacy
is a Battle of Olustee in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
I actually know virtually nothing about that. That's an obscure battle. Kojak, give us a little, if you want to, give us a brief in the chat. This is what the obscure battlefields is about. This is cool. Yeah, let it, if you know some stuff. It's on Twitch. It's if you look on if you watch the video and you look on the live chat on the Facebook video, you'll see that there's a live chat actually in the video as well. So if people are not able to watch on Twitch, they can see the chat on the video here. I've tried to set it up to make it as such. And there's also a chat on Facebook for people that want to chat on Facebook. So it's multi-platform for that very reason.
See, I'm like involved in this whole thing, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
Your best bet is to open it on Facebook and watch it on Facebook. And because and then you're gonna want to turn your volume, make sure the volume's muted on that video too, because it'll pick it up in the mic.
I put it down. I see nobody chatting, but that's okay.
Yeah,
now we just sound like we're like computer dorks right now.
It's okay. That's kind of are. I mean, we're sitting here talking through your computer. But that's the fun part.
Much it.
That's the fun part. I wish it could be in person. I wish we could be on a battlefield right now.
Well,
but it is cold.
Being in person on the battlefield is definitely awesome. It'll definitely be cool to do a couple of these shows together. Of course, once the world gets a little bit back to normal and stuff like that.
TikTok.
Do stuff together.
Yes, I would like to get on those darn fields and tours and just the regular visitor center experiences again, man, and bus tours. Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, definitely.
The battle that saved Tallahassee. The only Confederate camp.
You want to talk about obscure battles? I'm going out to Cedar Mountain at the end of this month.
Oh?
And, the Friends of Cedar Mountain are doing a tour, doing it socially distanced, small groups. Right now it's groups of 10, but they will get other historians to do it. But, yeah, Cedar Mountain is doing something February 27th.
Do you have to RSVP for it, or did you show up?
No, you should RSVP. They do ask for a $10 donation because they are a nonprofit organization that runs primarily on tips. Hopefully the state will take it over at some point with Brandy Station, but right now they still run, I say tips, I meant donations. But yeah, they request a $10 donation to go on the tour. Mm-hmm. So, February 27th, I can definitely get that up. I learned this, for those of you that don't know, we have a guy in town named Alan Zirkle who puts out a lot of information in the area about things going on. And 10 a.m. to noon, it's only a 2-hour tour, Sunday, February 27th. Guided walking tour of Cedar Mountain Battlefield. Wear sturdy shoes.
Oh, we'll see you there then, Kojak. Me and John both are going to be at the ECW Symposium.
Nice. Yes, that's August, I believe.
Yes, it is. Oh, I'm stoked. It's one of my favorite events. I was so bummed about last year, but it was cool to be able to do the virtual symposium still. I really enjoyed that. and I'm glad we were able to go into that. But I mean, that doesn't beat the Stevenson Ridge, man. So pumped for August already.
This will be my first one this year, so I'm looking forward.
Oh, this is your first?
Yeah, I've never been to an ECW.
No way. They're so fun.
I'm ready.
South Mountain is obscure. Clinton, welcome, man. It is. I don't know. Is South Mountain obscure? The fighting is.
It's pretty well known. No, I mean, I think it's well known enough. I mean, you got Reno getting killed there, and everybody knows where Reno got killed.
Sure.
You got Hooker, who's really, moving up the ladder at South Mountain. You got your buddy DHL.
Oh yeah, just
doing his thing.
Yeah. I love DHL. Eating breakfast while he should be attacking the center of the line, but no, we don't do that, do we? No, we're eating biscuits and gravy and whatever else you have, flapjacks and.
That's why he's your buddy.
Mm-hmm. Yo, I do love you some biscuits and gravy though, so there's got to be a little bit of a point where I don't blame him. Just saying, I've got to give him some slack.
But you also got to say to kind of go along with what you were talking about before we came on, but you got.
Go ahead.
I figure South Mountain also has basically an entire volume in the Ezra Carmen series. So, that's got to amount for something. I think South Mountain could have been obscure, but I think it's one of those areas that has gotten a lot more attention over time.
That's fair.
So its obscurity has kind of gone away. Yeah, because like certain things about Gettysburg, one of the battles I chose was the Battle of Stevenson's Depot. So let's see how many people start commenting on that and be like, yeah, I know all about that. And like you were talking about Shepherdstown, and I'm sure a lot of people are like, what? So yeah, these are
North Carolina
these
Monument.
Are obscure.
Monument? Garland falls at South Mountain too.
Yes, he does.
Samuel Garland.
Yes, he does.
Yep, he falls. Reno falls. That's the notable ones.
I don't even know if I would put Chantilly. Even though you got Israel Richardson falling there, I don't even know if Chantilly is obscure anymore. Who's the other guy that fell? Richardson and somebody else fell at Chantilly.
Oh, Kearney.
Yeah, Kearney. I'm from Jersey. I should know that.
You should. Yeah, he's in the capital too. I pass Phil Kearney almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a nice.
Phil Kearney.
Yep, he's in the Hall of Representatives.
Phil Kearney probably would have been commander of the Army of the Potomac at some point.
Absolutely. He lost his arm in the Mexican-American War, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right, because him and Howard would joke, and Howard lost his at Seven Pines.
Mm-hmm.
They would joke that they could put on each other's glove. It's funny stuff, man. That's awesome.
Can't be as bad as John Bell Hood. John Bell
No,
Hood
I can't. Yes, he did. It literally. That he sacrificed it all at Franklin, but that's a story for another day. I don't know. I would like to have somebody on to talk Franklin because that's a little beyond my expertise right now. I don't know enough to really even joke like that. I just thought it'd be, from what I've gathered and just the overviews I've read in Franklin, it's like, oh, so sacrificing the Army of Tennessee. Okay, that's what we do. Army of the Tennessee.
I try to get in contact with William Lee White.
Yeah, I would love to pick his brain on Franklin. That would be very, very helpful because, like I said, my back knowledge on Franklin is slim to none.
Yeah, yep. Definitely.
Oh, cool. So Stevenson's Depot.
What about it?
Well, that's your obscure battle. I'm interested to hear a little bit about what your obscure battle is, man. Like, you got some information for us. And now, mind you, we're not really going and diving anywhere deep. I'm going to be pulling from Ezra Carmen in the official record, so that's some very monotonous stuff. I apologize, but it's what I find very resourceful and very interesting to read, if anything. Battle of Aldi is definitely an obscure battle, and I like that. You brought that one out. I mean, we could even say Drainsville too. Big Bethel.
Yeah.
Wilson's Creek out in where's that, Missouri? Is that Missouri? Wilson's Creek.
That is Missouri.
Yeah, that's
Wilson's
right.
Creek was I don't know. Wilson's Creek. I don't know if I'd put that on obscurity level.
I think it's covered pretty covered.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't want to say just because it's a national park. I mean, you got Nathaniel. Why am I so bad with names recently? I almost said Nathaniel Green, and that's the Revolution. But I don't know. Wilson's Creek. Samuel Sturgis comes up in that, and
Hunterstown on 2 July. Her name is really good, was there too, yeah.
Yeah, Hunterstown's got some cavalry action in it.
Do you think
got Jeff Stewart
Bristow
too.
Station could be considered obscure since it's? I mean, the coverage on that isn't very deep, and I guess it's. But I don't know. Would you consider that an obscure?
I would, because really it's only starting to get recognition. That's part of the Forgotten Fall, which is something that I've taken a huge interest in, which is basically the period between, I would say, Gettysburg and Grant getting promoted to lieutenant general, and then the Wilderness.
And that's going to be our
Bristol
first
Station-
in-depth
Yeah,
big
Bristol,
episode.
Bristol Station kicks off actually a series of battles that pretty much nobody ever talks about. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 battles that occurs from basically September 63 to December 63, and here in Virginia, and then nobody really knows about it. And what's interesting about the Forgotten Fall is how much it intertwines with Chickamauga and Chattanooga.
Mm-hmm.
Like these 5 tiny battles all intertwine with those 2 huge engagements. And
Yeah.
and Jeff Hunt right now has a book coming out about Rappahannock Station, and then he's working on the final volume of Mine Run right now. So,
I'm excited to read that. That's going to be fun. Yellow Tavern. I know I hear so many sad things about how small that monument or little marker is out there. There is a monument to Jeb Stuart in somebody's front yard, isn't there?
There's something there. I haven't been over there yet, but yeah, there's basically that's about it. I think the house he was brought to, I think that's where it is. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I don't know enough about it, but I don't know how long it was until he was brought over into Richmond. Because I know he's brought into a house there and then brought to Richmond, and he died in Richmond, but I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I mean, yeah, you got Morton's Ford, which is a small cavalry action. I'm trying to think of when that was. I learned that one from Stewart recently. I don't know. I can't throw things out there because right now my mind is mush. It seems like. But Stevenson's Depot is the final act in the opening Gettysburg campaign, and what I mean by that is, if you look at the Gettysburg campaign, what opens it? Most people look at Brandy Station. Chapter 2 is Second Winchester. And Stevenson's Depot is the final act of the Second Winchester story that basically opens up Lee getting into Maryland and up into Pennsylvania pretty much unopposed at that point. Lee actually referred to Stevenson's Depot as the Thermopylae of his campaign. If you don't know what that is, go see the movie 300. That is Battle of Thermopylae, and which is not historically accurate, but it's a pretty cool movie to watch. And basically, it's securing one of Robert E. Lee's main objectives, which is clearing the valley of federal troops. And Richard Ewell, for what he doesn't do at Gettysburg, as far as taking that hill if practical in Lee's mind, Richard Ewell does one heck of a stellar job in his first campaign as a corps commander, and then it's pretty much downhill after that for him. And really, it's Allegheny Johnson's division. Allegheny Johnson really is kind of like the shock force of the Second Corps Army of Northern Virginia. I mean, he's got the Stonewall Brigade, the Louisiana Tigers. He's got George Maryland Stewart. Like, his division is always being used over and over again by the Second Corps. And yeah, they're the ones that basically cleared out Stevenson's Depot from Milroy's troops who were at Second Winchester, got smacked around by Jubal Early, and then put up the last effort to capture. How many were captured? I'll get you that number real quick. Johnson lost only 14 killed and 74 wounded. But he had captured 3,500 prisoners, 11 stands of colors, 175 horses, arms, accoutrements of every description. I mean, it was just nuts how much was captured. Overall, Ewell's Corps captured 23 cannon, 300 wagons. I mean, it was just what they did, basically combination of Second Winchester and Stevenson's Depot, was pretty impressive, and they were able to fuel Lee moving up into Pennsylvania off of what they did in the Valley.
So do you think that this obscure battle would be something that really causes the war to change in any type of way? Does it change the outcome of how a battle could play? I mean, I don't want to dive into any like what ifs or anything of that nature, but do you think that would be something that could have ended up making one of these battles change, or did it have an effect on any of these?
I personally would have to look more into it. Now, as far as Stevenson's Depot as a full-on game changer, no. You had too few people involved, so to speak. Again, as I kind of look at it, if you're going to look at Lee's Northern Campaign of 1863, Stevenson's Depot was unlocking the door. It was Brandy Station was basically, well, Brandy Station actually was kind of a shocker. They weren't expecting Buford to be coming across and doing what he did. But if you look at Second Winchester as the Confederates are banging on the door trying to get the door opened up, Stevenson's Depot was, well, instead of trying to knock down the door, we found the key and we unlocked the door. So Stevenson's Depot basically opens up and makes, in my opinion, Gettysburg happen. Now, granted, nothing was going to stop the Army of Northern Virginia. The Union forces in the Valley were really running on fumes as far as a very few amount of troops and things like that. They weren't going to be able to stop the entire Army of Northern Virginia from coming up because they were all coming up that way. Whether it was Ewell in the lead or Longstreet coming up or Hill coming up, there was nothing they were going to do to stop them. But Stevenson's Depot is the key. It opens up the door to Pennsylvania. And if you want to say what it really does, I think you got to go back to what I said about how well Ewell performed in his first leading actions. They weren't huge, Second Winchester and Stevenson's Depot, but it put probably confidence in Lee into Ewell, feeling that Ewell will be able to do his job. Remember, Ewell's brand new. Who was commanding the Second Corps before Ewell? Stonewall Jackson. So you got to figure Ewell is filling some big shoes, and Ewell was actually pretty much almost handpicked by Jackson. You know, before Jackson was shot in Chancellorsville, if I fall, Richard Ewell should take command. So Ewell is going at this as like, okay, I got to do something. And he did it. He cleared the Valley, one of Lee's objectives. And now it's like, okay, Lee's like, I got confidence in you. And then we have some of the more famous moments again. Lee's orders on July 1st, take that hill if practical, talking about Cemetery Hill, Culp's Hill area. And we know Ewell does not commit to taking those positions. And the rest is history. They keep banging their head against those two hills. And slowly but surely, Ewell starts falling out of favor with Lee once you get into, even though Ewell does well at Mine Run, does well at the Wilderness, Spotsylvania Courthouse, I don't know what that was, creating the line that he did. But I think if Stevenson's Depot does anything, it puts not a false sense of security into Lee with Ewell, but it gave Lee confidence that I think was quickly shattered.
I think that's a very fair assessment, actually.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And I mean, again, from knowing that now, that's an obscure battle. Not many people have the opportunity to study something of that nature or even hear about that. And it's cool that, there's these little tidbits that we can find here and there. But I mean, I think it would be cool to have further studies on these smaller things. But then again, it's a matter of, is the information widely available? Where is this information at? Mm-hmm. Where the primary source is located? So on and so forth.
And you can visit Stevenson's Depot. Cool. Again, I keep going back to ECW books, The Last Road North by Robert Orson and Dan Welch. It's that driving tour I've mentioned in other podcasts, and it is stopped. There are a couple of Civil War trail markers. They are hard to find. It took me a while to find the Stevenson's Depot ones. And there is also a monument to Snowden's artillery, which was basically like Snowden's artillery, and I don't want to definitely say for sure, but they were basically defending the bridge, and they were stopping Union troops from getting over that bridge, kind of like Antietam or 500 Georgians stopping the Ninth Corps from getting across, while you had this artillery stopping whatever Union troops are getting over this bridge. And there is a monument to Snowden's men, and there are a couple of Civil War trail markers there, but good luck finding them. Luckily, I know where they are now for the next time I get out there.
Well, that's, like I said, I think Stevenson's Depot might have to be on my list now, and I need to go see if I can't visit that battlefield, because it sounds like it'd be something I'd be interested in seeing. Those obscure battlefields are fun. East Cavalry Field proved nothing. South Cavalry Field was very important. Interesting. Mm-hmm. I don't know much about the Cavalry Field. I have Wittenberg, 2 of his books, to get me up to speed on that here soon when I go back to Gettysburg, because I've actually found quite a love for East Cavalry Field. Mm-hmm. Yeah, East Cavalry Field was pretty cool. Oh, shit, welcome, Mood. Thank you for joining. But yeah, I mean, Cavalry Field, the Cavalry Fields at Gettysburg are incredible to see as well. I think, some of the stuff, it's Custer, I believe, that's on the East Cavalry battlefield.
Yep.
It's where Custer's fighting.
Forward, you Wolverines, or whatever. I'm sure I'm going to get flack for that one, because I know I botched that quote.
No, you didn't try to go for an exact quote.
I know a guy that portrays Custer in Living History, so if he hears this, he's going to be like, oh, that was terrible.
Oh, he portrays Custer. Hopefully he's Civil War Custer.
Maybe. Oh, man. So you were also now think about Stevenson's Depot.
Wade Hampton,
very near to the West Virginia border, and so by June of 1863, when that's going on, West Virginia is not there yet. Not quite. It was voted on, but I don't think it's official until July of 1863. But I could be wrong about that. Now you were also looking at a battle in West Virginia. Well, but then again, when it happened, Shepherdstown, it wasn't exactly West Virginia yet either. Wasn't it in 1862?
I believe it was 62.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe that is after the Battle of Antietam that happens, isn't it?
I do believe so.
So what is that? Basically,
are you talking about the Battle of Shepherdstown?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about something else in regards to Shepherdstown. I guess I was daydreaming looking at this note here. The Battle of Shepherdstown. Okay, so that's a retreat turned wrong, or a pursuit turned wrong, I guess I should say, because there are quotes of them saying that McClellan is the one that botched this pursuit because it could have been successful. It could have been a proper pursuit of the Confederates as they're crossing the Potomac River back into Virginia. I personally see it as a massacre of the 118th Pennsylvania. And I think it was something that was more of a feeler for a pursuit to see what forces may have actually crossed and what's left in force that could possibly delay any type of movement in force as well. And it turns into 2 Union brigades clashing with A.P. Hill's division. So, obviously, we're looking just days prior to the bloodiest single day in U.S. history. Up until that point, in fact, still, I think today it's still the bloodiest single day. Antietam is a nightmare for these troops because, mind you, the bloodiest battle up to that point was Shiloh, and that was in itself extremely horrific. Not that any of these battles that have been fought thus far are horrific, and they're all horrific in their own right. But Sharpsburg, Antietam, whatever you may call it, was awful. Mm-hmm. A terrible day for the United States as a whole. And obviously, you really, today in history, we love to jump and judge quickly. Oh, I would have done this, I would have done that, I would have done this, I would have done that. But if you were in that situation and, in that time, and would you really have done that? You don't know because you're not put in that type of stressful environment. You know, your buddy's head's not flying off his shoulders, and the guy's feet aren't rolling up at your feet because the ball just took him off. I mean, these are sites that these guys are seeing and making decisions off of stuff of that nature. Today we're making those decisions and those assumptions looking at pages of a book. I think that Shepherdstown gets a lot of that treatment because of how stupid it may sound to some people. To me, it doesn't sound very stupid at all, but I've heard it a dumb decision, and it is at the same time in its own right not wise because of the outcome. We know today what the outcome was, but I think in hindsight, once I explain it a little more, maybe you'll understand what I'm getting at, unless you already know. The pursuit itself, I think, was logical, and it was sound, and it had merit in what it was supposed to accomplish. Obviously, things did not work out like they were supposed to, which is always the case when we want to talk about that war that was fought between the years of 61 and 65. They were not nice. Very ironic years too. We find a lot of ironies in that. Obviously, we know after the Battle of Antietam, which was September 17th, 1862, there wasn't a renewal of battle on the 18th, the following day, but there was an intention by General McClellan to renew the fight. Nicodemus Hill, which was a very, very notable spot for a artillerist that you will learn quite a bit about if you study Fredericksburg at all, or just know the name John Pelham in general. Pelham had an excellent battery position and commanded and pretty much dominated those heights for the first half of the engagement on the 17th. However, on the 18th, we're looking at Nicodemus Hill having quite the attention drawn to it, which might serve pretty roughly for the Confederates there. The ability to seize the hill was definitely one of the things I think on Union minds that day, if McClellan was to renew an attack. But no, it never formulated, and the day went on to the 19th. In this time span, too, we have Lee siding to cross the Potomac and all. But that day, Burnside on the 17th gets demolished by when we see Kojak mentioning here too, A.P. Hill's forced march from Harper's Ferry. It's a 12-mile march now, mind you, a forced march. I mean, you want to talk about arriving in the nick of time. That was it right there. A.P. Hill arriving in Sharpsburg and smashing into Burnside the way he did and push him back across the Antietam Creek there. I mean, that was what saved that battle. Because we could have been talking an overwhelming defeat for the Army of Northern Virginia. Hell, I mean, Burnside's guys got right up into the town of Sharpsburg. I mean, they're just on that little corner of Sharpsburg. If you drive in through the tour and you come out the Harper's Ferry Road and you hang that right, you'll see markers for, United States troops that are on this far of an advanced line, damn near on the streets of Sharpsburg. So that's how dire this situation was. I mean, it can be exaggerated, sure. But on the corner and the end of town, that's pretty damn close to a very, very bad situation for Lee. Lee's headquarters is not far away from that either, to add this effect of, seriousness to the army. Fitzporter is a very involved character in our little ending narrative today. And regardless of what you think of him, he's just got quite a pen and quite a mouth on him, I think. And we all find that out throughout the war. There's quite a few of those generals that we look at that tend to be mouthy. But that's some of the fun in studying the war, is getting those smart asses there. Yeah, I don't know. Burnside just really fumbled. Maybe not fumbled, but just the delay. There were many contingencies, and I don't want to dive into that because I could do a whole episode on the delay of Rohrbach's Bridges assault, why that couldn't get taken. Maybe we can sit here and hash that out all day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think getting down to just some of the understanding of what I'm going to read here. This is actually from General McClellan himself. And mind you, the only person that he really consulted with was Porter. And this is the surviving letter that we have. It is a part of the official records, of course, so I told you I'd be pulling from those. But it says, after a night of anxious deliberation and a full and careful survey of the situation and condition of our army, the strength position of the enemy, I concluded that the success of an attack on the 18th was not certain. I am aware of the fact that under ordinary circumstances, a general is expected to risk a battle if he has a reasonable prospect of success. But at this critical juncture, I should have had a narrow view of the condition of the country had I been willing to hazard another battle with less than an absolute assurance of success. At that moment, Virginia lost, Washington menaced, Maryland invaded, the national cause could afford no risks of defeat. One battle lost and almost all would have been lost. Lee's army might have marched as it pleased on Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, or New York. It could have levied its supplies from a fertile and undevastated country, extorted tribute from wealthy and populous cities, and nowhere east of the Alleghenies was there another organized force able to arrest its march. So that is McClellan's reasoning for not marching and not attacking, and the unformulation of any type of assault on the 18th. But I also like that in particular, in that reasoning that he uses there, because it kind of helps me set a little stage for Shepherdstown that's coming. And John, I'm sorry if I'm going overboard with this, but I figured I had the information right here. Might as well teach it, man. It's wonderful that I forgot I had this much, and it's just coming to me as I'm reading it out to y'all. And I think McClellan, I don't think he's as, I don't want to say stupid, but as cautious as people think. I think he had valid reasoning. I mean, again, look at the conditions of the day. It's that the ebbing and flowing of combat that takes place in the cornfield, which is just a nasty slaughter. The Westwoods just, oh God, it's the Westwoods. Fighting that's swirling around the Dunker Church and the constant pushing back, I guess you could, again, say the ebbing and flowing of combat that's happening there as well. And then you move to sectors like the Bloody Lane, which again is just a nasty slaughter, especially on the Confederate side. And these bodies are piling 1, 2, 3, almost 4 tiers deep in an old sunken farm lane. But those Union troops that were attacking it, to get to that point even, a lot of them went down because it was wide open field terrain, played a major role in why the Confederates had such success, because they're in a natural formation, they're in a sunken lane, and they're shooting troops on an open field that are cresting a hill and in perfect view of where you are at with your musket pretty well rested on the knob on the hill there. Now that road was not dug out to be an earthwork or anything of the nature. It's a natural formation. That road is a old byway, old little farm lane that has been traveled very, very often, and in years and years and years of this wear and tear on the road, obviously will give it more of a depression, and it just, in a time of war, sometimes these things serve as excellent defensive positions. In this case, it did. It only held for so long, but it held enough to put a really big hamper on how the day was going to end up playing out. Again, we can look at that as we go into Shepherdstown as well. So we're looking at McClellan's reasoning for not renewing his attack, and I think his reasoning then, standing as it is, of his fear of what it could possibly and potentially do to the armies, both the Army of the Potomac and the Army of Northern Virginia, would strengthen the Army of Northern Virginia in his mind and give it a successful invasion and continue forward and just willy-nilly walking into these cities. Or he attacks and loses a lot of men, but defeats it. And whatever his outcome is, he is not renewing an assault. And that is going to play drastic into what takes place the following day. Now, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there were trains to cross the Potomac at Blackford's Ford, which is going to be a highlight of what we're talking about when it comes to Shepherdstown. Longstreet was going to move to that line, and at 2 o'clock in the morning on the 19th, which 19th is going to be big battle day, we're going to focus on the 19th there. Jackson and Longstreet, who Jackson is actually going to be following Longstreet ahead of him, are all going to pile in and get across the Potomac River back into Virginia. Fitzhugh Lee's brigade of cavalry and Gregg's brigade of A.P. Hill's division are the last infantry to cross over the Maryland side and bring their army back into Virginia. So that gives us the understanding of why A.P. Hill was kind of present when the Union Army is going to cross over and engage with Confederates that are 2 miles ahead of him when they ultimately reach the other shore. Now the 18th again goes by with nothing. 19th starts out with the Confederates now off Maryland shore into Virginia. Now mind you, today Shepherdstown actually resides in West Virginia, so West Virginia has not left Virginia and formulated its own state. It is still Virginia at the time. Colonel J. Thompson Brown, who I'm very familiar with because he did play a lot with Parker, Virginia Battery. William Nelson Pendleton's division, or battalion, and other guns were going to be left on this side in Virginia to protect the crossing just in case there was a pursuit by the Federals. Fitzporter's 5th Corps is going to be the one to follow into the vicinity of Shepherdstown. There's an undeveloped situation in front of them. They're not entirely sure what the situation looks like across. There's small bands of infantry that they're going to fight. As with any maneuver like this, you always have some further back regiments that are going to be holding positions and not really doing anything but guarding approaches or guarding retreats or what have you. So, of course, along the way, the 5th Corps will dispatch some troops to engage with those. And the cannoneers that I mentioned earlier, so we're again looking at J. Thompson Brown, Pendleton, they're going to lose some gunners and they're going to fall off their guns there. We're going to talk about Griffin's and Barnes's brigade, which was about 60 men of the 1st United States Sharpshooters. Yours truly, I have some family that fought in that. The 4th Michigan and the 118th Pennsylvania. I want you guys to keep in mind the 118th, please. And the 22nd Massachusetts, also I should mention the 18th Pennsylvania. They all formed for the mission of getting across the river, and General Griffin is going to be taking command of them. And under his direction, and under cover of fire, the 1st United States Sharpshooters are going to lead the way because they post themselves along the riverbank and in a bed of a canal, and then they've started pushing across Blackford's Ford. When they get across Blackford's Ford, Confederate infantry will greet them. Pendleton writes that the Confederate infantry retreated in confusion, in a state of disorder akin to panic and compelling the abandonment of several guns. So there's where Pendleton's going to lose his infantry when Griffin crosses. And it's about sunset when Griffin's going to cross the river. Now, across the river, it's not flat ground. And not by any means. It's going to be some pretty significant heights. A few small parties of Confederates, they're going to be on top of these heights because it's great shooting ground. And they're going to cause quite a ruckus for the 1st United States Sharpshooters. But the Sharpshooters scale and capture the guns and take a man prisoner. Go Sharpshooters. They always know how to do that. They're actually going to take those guns and take the time to remove them to a point far from the riverbank. And now why they took the time to do that, I don't really know. I mean, it's in the middle of really trying to feel for the enemy presence. It seems like, I guess the sheer victory of climbing heights and scaling heights like that while facing enemy fire, then dispatching the enemy that was shooting at you and even taking a prisoner, that gun's going to mean something to you in some way, shape, or form. So being able to spend the time on that, getting that across, seems like it's a good idea, but at the same time, militarily speaking, it seems like it's a bad idea. I'll be sure I got about 10 more minutes left, and I'll try to wrap it up so we're not too long here. I know it's already getting late, and I want to close this out by 6:30. So, again, we're at sunset across into the Virginia side again, and the gun was taken back to the Maryland shore. Safe behind Porter's lines. Now he's got his new trophy. Along with that came the order to recall to the east side of the Potomac. So that whole fighting to grab a gun and come back, lose a few men, may have meant a lot to some, may have meant little to none. We don't really have a lot of, surface notes to understand what these men were experiencing in terms of morality when it came to the battle here at Shepherdstown. So the result of that day on the 19th, you're just 5 pieces end up being captured, 2 caissons, 2 caisson bodies, 2 forges, and I believe it were around 400 arms. So we were talking Enfields, Springfields. It's a trail mix bag of guns there. 3 of the guns that they are going to ultimately get across do get back to Maryland. 2 guns do not. Porter, again, on the morning of the 20th, is going to cross the Potomac. Now, this time, McClellan is a little interesting here. This crossing of the Potomac isn't going to be 5 caissons, or 5 guns, 2 caissons, 2 caissons, bodies, and 2 forges. This is a disastrous thing for McClellan, for Porter, for Griffin, for Barnes, and for the 118th Pennsylvania. McClellan is going to give you a report of the day. Again, we're pulling from Porter's reports back to McClellan on the OR here. Porter's corps was passing through the town. McClellan and his staff came galloping up the hill. Porter's men swung their hats and gave a cheer, but few hurrahs came from the other corps, none from Hooker's. A change had come over the army. The complacent look which I had seen upon McClellan's countenance on the 17th, as it all were going well, had disappeared. There was a troubled look instead, a manifest awakening to the fact that his great opportunity had gone by and Lee had slipped through his fingers. So there's that change in attitude. 2 days prior, he's cautious. As cautious as he is, and he's not overbearing. He's not really daring to do anything, and now he's acting like he's made Lee retreat, and he's won the battle big time. This is all accolades to McClellan, ignoring the opportunity that he just let slip, which was a very big one. McClellan's confidence obviously is going to reflect in his army. I think that might be what had spurred the incursion across the Potomac again into Virginia to follow the Confederates and pursue a proper pursuit, if you will. Lincoln was still disappointed because of the 18th and the inaction. Something had to be done, and I think this Shepherdstown was going to be the thing that proves it. So now we're actually getting into the town of Shepherdstown itself, or the outskirts of Shepherdstown. Again, Boteler's Ford, or Blackford's Ford, as we will, is on the Virginia side, and it is the most passable point in between Jefferson County, Virginia, and Washington County, Maryland. There is a bridge in place, obviously. During the battle, there was not. Bridges are burned. You don't want easy access across, so we're using fords. I think there was a train bridge, but I don't even know if that was active 100%. I do believe there were trains that got across, so if so, they're using a ford. And when I mean trains, I don't necessarily always mean choo-choo railroad trains either. I may also be referring to what the Army would call wagon trains. I mentioned the heights earlier, around the ford. And the fort itself is about a mile below Shepherdstown, maybe a mile and a half. And people refer to it as Shepherdstown itself, so a lot of the reports you'll get it as Shepherdstown, you'll get it as Blackford or Boteler's Ford. It gets the Blackford name from the Blackford farm on the Maryland side, and it does really reach the Virginia side on the Boteler farm, Blackford, Boteler. And it was very short. Water to feed a large mill was used here, so this also really played a part into why it was not as active. So fast forward to the morning of the 20th. Boteler's Ford is going to be our focal point. There's a bluff on the Virginia side, a very large bluff at that. It's perpendicular to the direction of Shepherdstown. Boteler's Mill's 350 yards above the ford. And beyond it, along the lower face of that bluff, we have a road that's going to be very well talked about and very well visited by some of these troops. That road passed over kilns to feed furnaces and fires. The bluff rises again and continues to rise. Another road will pass through the breast of the hill, and the breast obviously being a part of, it's called a dam breast. I don't want to just say breast and make people be concerned at what that might be, because you've heard of breastworks and earthworks. When we refer to those, there are two different types. You have a breastwork and you have a dam breast, which is very similar. It works to keep dams flowing properly, so it's not obviously used for battle, but it's similar to what you're seeing in battle there, because it's using some of the same designs, but it's holding a dam into place. But it was about a 10-foot wide swath cut out. With it being not long neglected, though, planks were rotted, pieces of debris, and it was not a proper place to try to line troops up or even have troops maneuver through. Sykes is going to dispatch 2 brigades across into Charlestown Road, which is on the Virginia side, obviously, and it's just south of Boteler's mill. So he's got a farm and a mill there. And Barnes's brigade, again, they're going to run north on the mill. And the 118th Pennsylvania follows in with the rest of the brigade. The 25th and 13th New York cross 118th Pennsylvania in tow. When they get across, the dispatcher runs back to alert that there is A.P. Hill's division. Remember, they cross on the 19th, so they're already well and across the day before. But they're the ones that are going to be left back to kind of guard that rear, and this is exactly why Lee thought that he needed to leave somebody to guard. So Hill's going to throw out a skirmish line about 6 o'clock. And he's going to have brigades from Thomas, Gregg, and Dorsey Pender formed to the right and to the left, and that was all under the command of General Maxcy Gregg. Second line was Brockenbrough, Lane, and Archer's brigades, in that order. Trimble and Hayes came in to support Hill on the right and the left of the road. So they've got a very long line in place here. Union artillery rolls into battle on the opposite side of the river and will start to dispel its shells onto the Confederates now lining on the Charlestown Road. And while they're lining on the Charlestown Road, you're going to have a recall of troops again. Sykes wants everyone withdrawn. So General Porter is going to start directing immediate recrossing. Skirmishers are going to be on the left, trying to keep these batteries safe from any fire. And they started keeping an even heavier fire to protect the withdrawal. 2 regiments from New York got across with no problem. All thanks to the 1st U.S. sharpshooters on their right. Their fire on Confederate infantry did pretty good. The brigade only lost 1 killed and about 8 wounded while they were crossing. Barnes and his 118th Pennsylvania, though, are a whole entire different story. All the regiments that got across, but the 118th, got across due to the time, just in the nick of time, as we've been saying today, with A.P. Hill saving the day. Now A.P. Hill again crushing a regiment. Remember, it was following in behind the 25th and 13th New York, and it was supposed to form on their left. They stopped around the top of the bluff because they have reports that the enemy were approaching in force. They even took their narrow column and took it to the summit of the bluff. Ezra Carmen tells you that the head of the column reached the summit and saw before the open country for a mile or more with occasional cornfields, then fields changed to forests, and a wide belt of timber skirted the open lands. Farmhouse, barn and haystack dotted the plain, and to the right in the distance were the roofs and spires of Shepherdstown. But the beauty of landscape did not impress them so much as did the musket barrels of A.P. Hill's division gleaming and glistening in the sunlight. In their front and to the right, not a half-mile away, the whole brigade, sweeping down in steady tread, its skirmishers well in advance, moving with firm front. And ere the head of regimental column and scarce appeared upon the bluff, they opened a desultory fire. As his men came up, Prevost brought them by file into line, and Company E, with Lieutenants Hunterson and Lewis, was deployed as a skirmish line. Advancing but a short distance, it was soon severely engaged and unable to resist the heavy pressure, very shortly fell back upon the main line. So the skirmish line is being pushed in by the entirety of A.P. Hill's line that we have mentioned earlier, lining up on the Charlestown Road. So now these armies are staring directly in the face of each other. And when I mean armies, I mean a regiment against a division. You want to talk about SOL? And what's on your back? What's your escape route there? John, do you remember what the escape route is for them? Or do you have any idea what way out the 118th might have?
The only thing was that wagon train area, Ford. But,
we have bluffs, river bluffs is the only escape that they have at this point. Because, Hey, absolutely, that's correct. This is pretty much another Ball's Bluff with much taller cliffs.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever been across the Potomac there at Shepherdstown going into Antietam, it's very, very beautiful, mind you. Let me tell you, there's a nice Bavarian hotel on the left side going into Maryland. Very expensive though, but very cool. Still, that the heights on that are just incredible, and you know it ends up being pretty dastardly for the Union. Now, mind you, the only reason this is their escape route is because of the force of line that A.P. Hill is actually using on either the right or left of the Charlestown Road. And when Major Green Andrews of the 17th United States of Lovell's Brigade reached the summit, he was the last of the brigade to retire. He was on the right, on the very southern end of this bluff that we are discussing here, that was pretty much terminated by the Charlestown Road. And he was kind of cut off from being able to be seen. So they didn't know they were falling back either. So then he decided to take him to the top of a hill. Then he noticed the line of troops, but it was his own troops. He said it seemed that they rose out of the ground on my right. And immediately he received orders to recross the river. But at that time, Barnes was on the left of Lovell, or Lavelle, and Warren was on his left, and they started retiring and reached the foot of that bluff. And when he reached orders to retire in good order, Barnes gave the orders for the 118th Pennsylvania to fall back and recross. So another order was dispatched. Went in with Lieutenant Davis. He was sent up the road, and the Charlestown Road again, to recall the 25th, the 13th, and the 118th. Davis made his way to the New York regiments and got them, but the 118th was making no movement to withdraw and becoming engaged very hotly. Davis was called up again to yell at Prevost and Barnes. Davis got the 13th and 25th out, but not the 118th. The 118th, sort of a sad affair there, and get to the top of the ridge, holding as much pressure as they can from the attacking force that's just pursuing them to this point. He was ordered to form a battle line on the top of the bluff and under cover. The regiment's never seen combat, but a few days. It crossed the river with 737 men, John. All of its material was excellent.
Hmm.
7 companies formed a line, and the firing began. 2 companies on the right didn't meet it, were refused. And the other companies came up to fill in those gaps. Prevost then ordered an advance of the 118th to the crest of the hill. The enemy were seen, obviously in a much larger force than what Prevost had with his 118th Pennsylvania there. And when he meets his men on the top of the hill, immediately becomes engaged. And then the right becomes engaged. Then the front becomes engaged. And an order gets shouted to fire by file. The entire line becomes engaged. In very, very close quarters with 4 brigades of A.P. Hill's division. There was no opposition to Hill advancing down that road at all. In fact, he was able to dispatch 4 brigades to counter this regiment that is now fighting in extremely close proximity. Pender's brigade is on Hill's left and became very hotly engaged, so we're getting most of this fire from Dorsey Pender's brigade. Barnes believed that his left was threatened, and when he witnessed the 118th Pennsylvania moving forward in an advance, Dorsey Pender thought there was danger as well on his side. And he moved on the left, which was just kind of what Barnes was afraid of. He did it unmasked. There was no protection under this. There was no screening for this movement. It was just done, executed as is on the field, which can be very dangerous to do. They went double quick, and the Pennsylvanians, bearing the Enfield rifles that they had, which is kind of rare to see the Pennsylvanians carrying a lot of Enfields, but this was the case. The line obviously was not going to hold that type of pressure, and it started to waver. Prevost himself would seize the colors, and as soon as he grabbed them, 3 bullets ripped through his shoulder. He's severely wounded, and obviously he's not on the field as a fighting man anymore. And the regiment began to retreat in disorder. A total rout then started to become imminent, and Lieutenant Colonel James Gwynn, with some help from Major C.P. Herring, succeeded in rallying just about 200 men and charged over the slope of the hill in front. Captain Cortlandt Saunders and Joseph W. Ricketts and Lieutenant J.M. Moses were killed instantly. At the moment that they stopped, the enemy with their colors crowned and glistening in the sunlight, Gwynn ordered to fire on him. And in response, Pender's men unleashed a withering fire and cut that line down to bits. At last, the lines broke. 5 brigades of A.P. Hill's division are now in line. The only way out again were those bluffs, and orders were given to get into any of the road and retreat across the river. The loss had already been, so bad that you can't just throw them across the bluff. That's the only way out. You're going to have to just risk it and throw them in every position possible. So they're running into the road that's occupied. They're running into the fields, the houses, whatever it can be to get across the river. Well, most of the regiment went for a ravine, which was up on the right, and made quite quickly for it. And while they're marching up, a shell was going to strike a tree, and it obstructed the retreat. At this point, they're becoming demoralized. They're being chased by 5 brigades of Confederates. On the other side of that tree is the bluff. Now they're getting fired on. To their back is probably an unsurvivable fall. Men started climbing a tree and were shot as soon as they climbed. Bodies became suspended by branches, used for more bullet fodder as men tried to get over. And men that got over there were either severely wounded or outright killed from falling over the heights of the bluff into the rocks below. And ones that were down at the bottom that were severely wounded were fired on by Confederates of the 22nd North Carolina that stood over the bluff and shot into the Union troops that began floating in the Potomac. An abandoned mill became infested with Confederates because the Union troops made for that as well. When they went into the abandoned mill, they look up to the bluffs and seeing what's happening. Enemy began firing and firing, taking the mill for themselves, crowded windows, crowded doors, crowded any way they could pour a fire on the men on the bluff and just continue to pour on them. So now they're taking fire from afar, and a very accurate one at that. Waving handkerchiefs tied to ramrods or whatever they could get their hands on, they surrendered, hoping for better treatment than what they were just delivered. Berdan himself, seeing the situation, knew there was nothing he could do for the 118th, and they retired, using the canal bed to take back those survivors that could get to the Maryland shore. This affair cost 63 killed, 101 wounded, 105 missing, and an aggregate of 269 lost in the entire brigade. Their entire brigade lost 317 killed. The brigade lost 317. The 118th lost 269. A.P. Hill and Early finished the battle by gathering their forces. The Union loss in total for Boteler's Ford or Shepherdstown. This is the combined 19th and 20th numbers. 71 killed, 161 wounded, 131 missing, and an aggregate of 363. The Confederate losses were in A.P. Hill's division, 30 killed and 231 wounded. In Early's division, 9 wounded. Armistead's brigade, 8 wounded. And in the artillery, 3 killed and 4 wounded. Thus closing out what happened there at Shepherdstown. What was supposed to be a pursuit ended in absolute horrific disaster for a Pennsylvania regiment, going in with such large numbers and coming out with virtually nobody. And the horror that the ones that had to try to get out had to face, we don't think about that battle at all when you want to talk about obscure. Those are some tall bluffs. Those are some heights. Those are some very serious, we're talking 120, 200 feet almost, man. It's incredibly tall. At the bottom are steep bluffs, nowhere near that height of just rock and sharp rock formation. So no matter what, these guys are not surviving the fall, and if they do, they're so mangled that they can't move, and the Confederates just pour fire into them. That's Shepherdstown.
Yeah, and that goes to something that was said earlier about how these smaller engagements kind of shape something. You look at the Battle of Antietam, and if you're looking very closely at rosters and things like that, you're like, okay, they have this many men, and all of a sudden you get to Fredericksburg or something after, and you're like, well, wait a minute, what happened to this unit? Why do they have this number here at Antietam and then they have this number here? Or why are they no longer in existence or whatever? And that's why obscure battles are so important. Really is. And that's pretty much the last of Fitzjohn Porter, too.
It is.
Court-martialed come December.
Yep.
He's relieved in November, court-martialed in December, but not for this. It all has to do with Second Manassas and the friction with John Pope.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Well, this also indicates kind of, in that regard too, why McClellan's gone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you think about that, that's a huge factor.
No, absolutely it is. I mean, this is looked at because it was a sacrifice of a Pennsylvania regiment.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to look at, well, Lincoln didn't like McClellan and he just sacked him and Burnside became commander prior in November. Nah, it's not that simple. Look at what happened there. And then the argument can be, well, Meade didn't really pursue, but Meade did pursue after Gettysburg. And you have the Battle of Williamsport, which really was nowhere near to the scale of this. But he wasn't sacked. But, there's a lot of different factors. And, you think about what happened to the 118th PA, and yeah, that's glaring. That's going to be glaring when it comes across Lincoln's desk.
Yeah, no, and yeah, I think it's a big influential decision as to why McClellan is kind of booted. Not only that, but that's the pursuit that was given.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That was the pursuit that was handed out. So, I mean, I hope I did well with the story. I was doing it on the fly with notes that I had and stuff put together, and also using.
The fly.
Yeah, that was on the fly. I had Maryland campaign with me, so I used a few quotes from that, and I got the official reports obviously to help shape that, but just some of the notes I've taken when I visited last.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a nice Antietam binder. Well, I mean, these are the Maryland campaign. Something I've really given a lot of attention to.
Right.
Because I think it's just so unique. And to me, when I was really wanting to learn the military troop maneuvers and the fallout of that the Maryland campaign's, I think, one of the best to do because visually and landscape-wise, we're talking terrain again, you can see it. A lot of the Maryland campaign still has some of its features. And that helps incredibly. And you go to places like Harper's Ferry. Harper's Ferry is instrumental to the Maryland campaign. You've got places like South Mountain. Yeah, there's some stuff at South Mountain, but the parts that are there are pretty damn good, And then you go to places like Sharpsburg. The town of Sharpsburg brings you to the Antietam National Battlefield, which is incredible. So, especially speaking preservation. God, was that battlefield just a great thing that the War Department ended up.
Just looking at something here real quick, just to see. Smithfield, Sharpsburg, Shepherdstown. So yeah, I'm just looking at something here, and I always like to kind of give ideas of books and driving tours. And yeah, here it is. Talked a lot about these ECW books on these podcasts, and Rob Orison and Kevin Pollock, To Hazard All, A Guide to the Maryland Campaign. I mean, if someone wants to really get in depth, but not super in depth, like reading Ezra Carmen, because it's a lot for them. This has a couple of stops here, has maps in it for the Shepherdstown battlefield, and you follow in the footsteps. The tour starts at the Antietam battlefield, and you can follow straight down into Shepherdstown and just follow this story and get synopsis. So there's a book for you if you really want to get into Shepherdstown. And then my thing was The Last Road North by Rob Orison and Dan Welsh, which I will tell you now, Shepherdstown's got a lot more than Stevenson's Depot. I will tell you that right now.
Now, I will say I do have a very personal connection to Shepherdstown as my ancestor, Ed Duffy, the guy we've talked about quite a bit on here, who served with Parker's Virginia Battery. He's going to go in not convalesce, but he has his ball removed. That is, he gets shot in front of the Dunker Church with S.D. Lee's batteries there when they're protecting that line on the 17th of September, 1862. And that church still stands. And it was incredible to walk through that. And it was a unique experience because I did a little video there for my old Facebook page when I was doing that. And before I got real, headlong into this and was able to really spend time with this. And there was a lady that came out and she didn't get a lot of people in there talking about my ancestor was here in a hospital. So we became correspondents, and now we write back and forth about different things, and they send me little bits of information about some of the soldiers that they were able to identify, because they have their own little program trying to do something small like that, and it's not large yet, so obviously there's some assistance needed. Now with all the projects I have going on, as much as I would love to, I really want to get into something and help them out. So as I'm collecting some stuff from them. I still got so many things in front of me now that I need to tackle when it comes to the wars and the studies and my own work, but I do definitely want to dive into that more. And I want to look in and try to identify some of these soldiers that were treated from the Battle of Antietam in Shepherdstown amongst the churches. So not just, limited to Shepherdstown, but the Presbyterian Church, but, move around to different churches. Find out where was a hotspot for Confederate hospitals or Union hospitals, because they're all throughout the area. We're just racked with hospitals similar to Gettysburg. Another episode for another day, though. We ran a little over time today, and I apologize for that, but sometimes we get carried away when we talk, and I apologize again for that, but I hope that provided some insight on the Battle of Shepherdstown. Recommend seceding from secession. Dude, I literally just got that in the mail today.
Nice.
Literally. It was on a weird sale on I'm telling on myself, and I hate myself for this. I'm sorry. But I was scrolling through Amazon because Little Birdie told me Little Short of Boats was on there, and I've been looking for a copy of that, and I found it. And that was recommended to me on the list. And I've been wanting to do a West Virginia episode for my friend James, who has specifically asked me to do an episode on the history of West Virginia during the Civil War. So that was the first book I wanted to read before I do that. And I'm going to tackle it, see what's going on with that. I'm really excited to read it. It's by Wittenberg, so I have no doubt it's going to be a fantastic read. But yeah, that was purchased today. That came in the mail, dude. That came in the mail. Tullahoma came in the mail. And again, A Little Short of Boats, The Battles of Ball's Bluff and Edwards Ferry, which let me read through that a little bit. Give me about a week, if that, and we'll have an episode because I'm going to do some research this week on Ball's Bluff. Once I finish the 3 I've got in front of me, thankfully the 2 following Fredericksburg are 100-page reads as well. I made sure to order no shortage of smaller books to read that are also very wealthy in knowledge, because I am reading these 500, 600-page books and realizing I'm missing a lot. And he said it's an excellent book from a legal standpoint. Oh, fun. And I'm sure you've heard me say it earlier, I work on Capitol Hill, so I do enjoy the legal standpoint and the political aspect of a lot of these books and these studies that are done. So that'll be perfect. With that note, Kojak, thank you over on Twitch for keeping us up to our toes with the comments. We are some great conversation going on there, and I really appreciate that. It's what we like to do here, to get us all talking. My friend Tattooed Historian over on Twitch as well is streaming live, I believe. He's doing it just chatting as well, and we want to go and give him some love if you don't mind. I'm going to raid him. I'm going to give him a raid. That way he has some love from us too.
You sub to the channel if you are,
because he's on live now. Let's go to our channel here. I gotta remember how to raid. I used to be able to do this with no problem.
Alright. I'm going to go get some dinner.
Man, that's my next move. I'm gonna get John raided here, and then we're gonna go and get food, because I am hungry as hell. Alright, man. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate your insight tonight. Your opinions, facts, comments are always welcome on the show, and I look forward to talking some more tomorrow. We'll touch base in the morning, figure something out, and I'll bring some books with me to work for my commute, and I'll get something put together on my end. We'll do something, and if you find something tonight, let me know. Okay?
All right, sounds like a plan.
All right,
brother.
brother.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you have a good night, bud. Thank you for joining us.
All right.
Later. I'm going to figure this out, I swear. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to find a way to raid John, because he raided me last time, and I want to be fair. Not just that, but I love him, and he needs to get support, because he is on the same path. He does the same stuff we do over here. We do the same stuff he does over there. It's a team, man. Gotta get him in here, but if... I just don't have any technological abilities, I guess. Which is normal for me. I'm a historian for a reason. I like to study history, not technology. But I do like technology at the same time because it lets me talk to you guys. I'm going to stop rambling here. Play some music for us. I'm going to do our typical Bill Murray. If you guys have wondered what I play music-wise, Bill Murray's one of my favorite musicians here, and I really enjoy being able to showcase his music on here for you guys. Not your traditional musician. Oh, his stream starts at 7? Is he live right now? Is his stream on though?
Think I'm alone tonight. Stuck in my home, nowhere to go outside. I'm stuck inside my feelings. I started talking to myself.